So hello everyone, and welcome to the Wakelet podcast. We are in the Wakelet office. We are in the community corner, and I am sat with the lovely Amy.
Hi everyone.
I myself and James, we are part of the community team here at Wakelet. And what we like to do is jump on these podcasts, and we've got a little series, the community corner, where we invite our ambassadors, our leaders, to talk about kind of the topics that they are most interested in, and help share a few tips and tricks on the areas that they are experts at. For example, this one is all about growing your network, which of course we've done with a few webinars in the summer, a part of our summer PD series. And we thought, who best to ask than Dyann Wilson and Amy Storer, the Tech Care twins. So, Amy, Dyann, welcome to the podcast. Would you be as kind to share a bit about yourself to everyone that's listening?
Are you want me to go? Okay. All right. My name is Dyann Wilson. I am a school counselor in Willis ISD. I want to say my old district so bad, but I just changed districts. This is my 15th year in education, and I believe I'm going to my 8th year as a school counselor. Oh. I have this year I have 6th grade and half of my 8th grade population. It's a lot of kids. I moved from a very, very large district in Houston to a very tiny, it's not really a tiny district, it's growing, but it's way different, and I'm loving it. A little bit about me. I'm a twin. You can already tell. And I have allergies right now, so I'm going to sound like this for probably the duration of this podcast. But I love to camp. We try to go to all the state parks in Texas. We haven't done it yet. We have a little map where we pin them. Fun fact, I hiked the peak, which is the highest peak in Texas, with my husband. It took 8 hours. It was something I probably will never do again. It was grueling. And I think most people know this because I say it every time I speak.
She does.
Amy's shaking her head.
Mm-hmm.
I am a huge fan of Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and I can't find anybody as passionate as I am. So I'm hoping that one day, on whatever platform I'm on, I'm going to find someone I'm going to connect with about how obsessed I am with Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Anyway, that's it. That's it about me. And I have family. I have 2 children, a wonderful husband, 2 puppers. That's about it.
Amazing.
Well, I'm gonna throw that one out for now for anyone listening. We're looking for someone who is also a massive fan of Lord of the Rings. So if you take anything away, you might have a connection there. Grow your network with Dyann.
Right.
Who really love Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I am a big fan. I probably am not as diehard fan as you, but I do love it. So I can appreciate.
I was going to say, I thought Amy was a die-hard fan.
I'm
but now
quite good.
Dyann's saying she's a die-hard fan. Amy's like, oh, I'm not too sure.
I don't want to challenge it.
I
don't want to challenge it.
No.
Because there are a lot of names in it, isn't there? And I do forget the names. So I don't want to challenge it. But we'll throw it out there to the world and try and get someone who can, we'll do a quiz or something like that. Love it.
Well, my name is Amy, and I do not like Lord of the Rings, and I do not hike. My name's Amy Storer, and I am a lead learning guide at Fried Tech here in Texas. We are a professional development company that partners with educators from all over to show them the power in meaningfully integrating technology. It's a dream job. I'm loving this ride so far. Prior to joining the team, I was an instructional coach at a pre-K through 5th grade campus in Texas, as well as the lead tech integration mentor for my district. And I also have experience in the classroom, mainly grades 3 and 4, math and science. But like I said, loving my job right now.
Fab. That.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you both for joining us. So yeah, like I said, this is all about growing your network, and I think the best place to start, I mean, I'm loving, by the way, obviously Dyann is a counsellor and Amy is obviously an instructional coach by trade, so I think it's a great to get the point of view of 2 job roles here, and hopefully that can expand across like the many job roles in education. But to start with, I'd love to just ask, kind of as a counsellor and as an instructional coach, how have you been able to grow your networks? Like, how did you start? Let's start with that.
So I went to a math conference in Houston years ago, and I was already on Instagram and Facebook, and I didn't need another social media platform. But I was in a session, and someone had mentioned about starting a Twitter account. And in my head back then, it was years ago, I was like, Twitter is like for business professionals. Like, it's for like executives. I didn't see an educational I didn't know there was an educational space in Twitter at the time, and maybe there wasn't, or maybe it was just starting. So I decided to, and I kind of started slow and followed a few people, but it was really when I started my classroom Twitter account for my students that I saw the power in being connected, because my students were able to connect with like authors and authentic individuals. And I started seeing how those connections were impacting my students. And I thought it could very well happen for me, and it did. And it's just grown into something. I don't think that I would be where I am today, had the experiences that I have had, met the people that I have without specifically Twitter, and meeting people at conferences and growing my network, whether it was in person or online. And it's just been such a great ride. I love Twitter. It's my favorite place to go to connect with others. But yeah, Twitter's where it started for me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you should say it, because even I was always like, I sort of dabbled in Twitter, like, and then I wouldn't keep it going, and then in and out a little bit. And it wasn't until, of course, I joined Wakelet and the team here, and really truly saw the value in it and being able to connect. And we always say when we're going to these conferences, you know, you've only seen people's faces in these little icons, but you do feel like, you know, you're good friends. And then you're, you know, when you do get fortunate enough to then see someone in person, you kind of feel like you already know them, because you've connected on Twitter, you've seen, you know, what they've shared, and there's so many great things, and you know, resources shared on Twitter. But not only that, just like, it's a nice way to check in with each other as well. So yeah, I never knew, I didn't think I would, but I now have a lot of love for Twitter. So yeah, I agree.
I'm trying to think when I started Twitter, because I think I was in the same mindset as Amy. So from my connection journey probably started through just conferences as a counselor. I wasn't in Wakelet. I wasn't on Twitter when I first started attending counselor conferences. So my only connection was human interaction, like meeting, you know, other counselors at conferences. I would join the organization or volunteer and join their leadership committee. So that's how I started connecting at first, was going to conferences and networking with actual human connections, like face to face. And then when COVID happened, obviously that all went away. We couldn't go to in-person conferences. We weren't in campuses. And so, of course, I think I've said this a million times before about Wakelet, but when I was trying to find ways to connect with my community, my stakeholders, my parents, my students, my families, I reached out to my sister, and she's like, you need to use Wakelet. And that's the last thing I wanted to do, was add more work to what we were already doing on our campus, especially with virtual learning. It was a lot, but that's what I started doing. And that's the first tool I started using. And that's what started my connection. Now, within that time though, I joined Twitter, and I really started to love Twitter. I was connecting on Twitter a lot with other counselors, other people I've never met, especially during Wakelet. My season with Wakelet, when it started, I've met so many people through Wakelet just off of Twitter. I call her MP. Her name's Maha, and I don't like saying, because I think I'm saying it wrong, but we're like really good friends. And I've never met her, and I probably am never going to meet her in person, but we became really close friends. And it's because of Twitter and because of Wakelet. So I've learned to connect in a different way through Wakelet, through Twitter. It's built connections that I don't have with people that I know in real life. Like, so just meaningful connections are happening. And that's where it started for me, was unfortunately with COVID, you know, and then it just grew from there. So I credit that to Wakelet, and well, number one, Wakelet.
but who told you about Wakelet?
I'm sorry.
Number one is Amy Store.
Remember who got you riding that wave?
No, that's really good. I like how conferences for me I'd always put up there. It was interesting that kind of you heard of Twitter from a conference, and obviously Dyann, through kind of like having to look for new ways, virtually found these like virtual networks. Just wondering from your point of view, like obviously now hopefully most of the world are back to being able to go to in-person conferences, but there's still that virtual side like Twitter. For either of you, is there one better than the other, to start off in person and network that way at a conference, or would you start virtually, or a bit of both?
Yeah, there's so much power in both of them, but I think both have their own unique factors as far as getting connected. You know, when it comes to conferences, and this took me a while to recognize, a lot of the connections, the most powerful connections I've ever made at conferences happened outside of session presentations. They were in the hallways, they were in the expo hall. It was just meeting and greeting people. And like Amy had said earlier, you know, we've been seeing people on their Twitter profile forever. I had a person approach me one time at a conference and do this. Tech Amy.
I love that.
And it's so cool when people recognize you, and people, like Dyann said, there's people that we're meeting in person, of course, is fantastic, but the online space, you're meeting people that will impact you, and you may never ever get to meet them in real life, but they're still making that ripple of impact in what you do as an educator and as a human being. And I've met more people in the online space that have shifted my thinking and changed my thinking and empowered me to be a better person online than sometimes in person.
Right.
Sometimes those connections are just a little bit stronger, and it's so cool when you get to meet them in real life. I still remember when the Wakelet team walked into TCEA, was it last year? And I'd met some of you prior to that. I'm not kidding you. Courtney and I were on stage and we were like, oh my gosh, like what, the whole entire Wakelet team just walked into our room.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We kind of prayed with each other. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so surreal. But it does. It's like meeting long lost friends, and so it's just the coolest thing ever. So yeah, I've met and been empowered more so online than in person, but they're both fantastic spaces to be in.
Yeah, I have to agree. I was going to mention TCEA too, because as a school counselor, I've never even thought to register and go to TCEA, you know. And so when I went this year, and I remember it telling Amy, we've got to go in that conference hall, and she's like, calm down. I'm like, no, we got to go see them. And I was just like, I don't think I stopped smiling. I was just like, I even called my husband like, oh my God, you would not believe what I just met, you know, because he hears about all the stuff I talk about at home, obviously. But I just think in person is awesome, because I love, especially if I'm seeing somebody that I've only met through, like, you know, Twitter or Wakelet or online. Like at TCEA, people at that conference was just so crazy to me, because I'm a school counselor. I still don't feel like I belong there amongst those giants. But people walk up to me and are like, oh, Dyann, and I'm like, oh, who are you? You know, like they know me from like Twitter or from something I've done with Wakelet, because I can't tell you how many opportunities that y'all have given me that has allowed me to connect in a meaningful way with my role as a counselor. And I don't.
Yeah, and Dyann says that she doesn't think she has a space at places like TCEA, but Dyann just submitted a session she submitted it months ago, specifically about counseling, and it was accepted. So there is a space for Dyann there for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I love both.
Well, but
it's become more impactful for me to, you know, having the connections through Twitter or through Wakelet or whatnot, and then meeting them in person. It just seems to me like it's kind of backwards, but it's more impactful for me.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think also, you know, I wouldn't class myself as shy or anything like that, but there is that kind of level of familiarity you get when you've already connected with someone on Twitter. And for those of, you know, those people out there who are maybe a little bit shy or something like that, who wouldn't actually normally maybe approach someone and introduce yourself, because you've already connected on Twitter, you've seen, you know, a little bit about each other already, it just makes it just so much easier to then have those connections, I think, in real life. Because like you said, we have that same buzz when we get to any conference. CCA was it was my first TCA last time, and it was incredible to be able to connect with you guys and others and see them in person. And it is, like you said, like seeing friends again. And I think that really helps, you know, for someone who wouldn't, like I said, it's very rare that we go and just approach someone and say, oh, hi, I'm this person. You know, it takes a little bit more, doesn't it? But, you know, when you're kind of even like a level of familiarity, even if you haven't, you know, actually spoken on a video call or DM'd each other or anything like that, you're still, you know, it gives, I know you know, we're in each other, we're in the same space, we've got that, you know, we know that we're going to connect, and then it just makes it easier for when you are in person as well, which is really nice. And yeah, the buzz in an expo hall, you can't, it doesn't get much better, because it's, you know, like you said, you're connecting with so many people, meeting new and existing friends. But yeah, it's a great way to meet new, and then you meet people through that as well. You might start with someone who you've maybe connected on Twitter, but then they'll introduce you to who they're with and their colleagues, and yeah, it grows grows and grows just by being there as well, which is fantastic. And looking forward to your session, Dyann, because it definitely will be a hit. I know it will be. And yeah, definitely space for you at TCEA, 100%.
I really like the idea of having a mix of the virtual networking environment, whether it's Twitter or whatever you're using. I just think it makes it easier almost for when you do walk into that expo hall or when you do go to a session, you do recognize people, and it's like that safe space. You're all friends there.
Yeah.
You feel like you know people, whereas I feel like I've not done this before really, walking to an expo hall where you don't really recognize anyone. I can imagine that could be quite daunting. So yeah, that's a great top tip, to kind of do a mix of both, especially if you're wanting to go to a conference in the future. It will always help setting up that virtual networking first.
Yeah. But I take my hats off to you guys and anyone who goes to a conference first, maybe not having made too many connections and things, because it can be, I mean, you know, the first conference I went to wasn't a huge one, but it's still very new. And then, you know, you're going to be speaking to a lot of people, which is an exciting thing, but it's also a little bit, right, okay. And it can be quite overwhelming. So, you know, hats off to those who do just go to a conference to make these connections and who maybe aren't as active on Twitter or social and things like that, but who really do get a lot out of it as well, because it, you know, it takes some doing. And I'm sure the connections and well, I know that the connections that you make from meeting someone in person is invaluable as well. So yeah, I like the mix of both.
Yeah. With that being said, of course, totally, it's almost priceless, the connections you make are. What main benefits would you say come out of making these connections on online when you're networking there or in a conference? Is there any main benefits that you can see, and are they different virtual versus in person?
I feel I think you get the same, Dyann, virtual or in person, but there's some people that I feel like I could connect with them more in person than I could online, just because they're just different personalities. So, for example, I know it's probably not, you won't believe me, but I think I'm like half intro and half extrovert. So, like when I first started going to conferences, I wouldn't talk to anybody. Like when I first, like 7 years ago, I just kind of sit in the sessions and go to the next session and then go to my hotel room and not network. And then over the years, I would slowly meet people because I was volunteering. I was joining organizations and leadership teams. And that's how I built connections. You just kind of get uncomfortable and get outside that box. But I think there's just some people who are going to connect better in person than they are virtually. And that's totally cool. So I think that's the benefit, is that if you meet them in person, that's the real person you're going to meet. And then in virtually, it could be like MP. That's her. That's the one I'm going to know. The one I know virtually, the one who messages me on Instagram, messages me on Twitter. That's the one I'm going to know, you know? So I think the benefit is that you get to really know the person, that they are virtually or in person. That's the person you're going to meet, you know? So I don't know if that made any sense.
Sometimes it's easier to, like, for those that are introverts that have a hard time with making those connections in real life, or they're like Dyann, who they like to go to a session, go to their hotel room, and that's their kind of conference, and that's totally fine too. So sometimes being able to get those connections and form them online is just easier for some people. It's easier for me sometimes to do that. You know, I love to connect. I think you all know that, but there are times that when I go to conferences, I'm like, I want to go back to my hotel room and I want to watch The Office and just be in peace. And that's fine too. Then I'll get on Twitter and connect on Twitter if I wanted to. But I really do think it's all about who you connect with as well. Yeah, I don't know who said this, but the best learning can happen right down the hall. And I think that applies to in a school building, at a conference, on a social media platform. The best learning can happen with others that you surround yourself with. And when you're selective and you're intentional about who you connect with, whether it's in person or online, it can have such a great impact on you. And it's not just people that are like-minded like you. It's people that push your thinking, that stretch your thinking, that challenge you, that encourage you. And I know Dyann and myself have found that with the Wakelet community, with all of our friends on Twitter and in person. We choose to surround ourselves with people that are going to hold us accountable while also lifting us up. And I think it's a good balance to have, to just make us not just better educators, but better humans. So
yeah, Yeah, no, I love that, and because that's one of the things that I love about our community, of course, and the team here at Wakelet as well. Like, you know, there's so many different characters, and we bring out different strengths in each other as well. You know, because we all sort of bring something to the table. It's really nice to then be able to bounce things off of each other, but also know that you've got that support in an area that maybe you're not as, you know, comfortable in, and you can sort of reach out and get that. But the same with the community as well. You know, we're not experts in everything in everything education. We haven't all come from educational backgrounds, so it is amazing to be able to reach out to people like yourselves, or people in the community, and know we need a little bit more feedback on this, or we need to find out a little bit more about, you know, a certain area of education that we're not too familiar with, so we can make the platform, you know, cater to you know, education all over. So having that community is so invaluable to us, because again, we're able to lean on their expertise, and it just makes Wakelet better and better. And that is, you know, that's how the community started, with that kind of feedback and having that support system, and yeah, being able to grow it from there. So yeah, I agree. It's nice.
Yeah, and I love that quote as well, Amy. I totally agree. I think sometimes when we are talking about networking and growing your network, of course, people think further afield, like how can I connect with more people? But sometimes it could be, that person down the hall within your school. How can you network better with those? And I suppose as a counsellor and a instructional coach, I suppose part of that role, isn't it, to know everyone and be able to help, have a helping hand with everyone.
For sure. I think connections is like, that's all. I know, well, I think it's in any profession. It's all about connections, especially, you know, especially for our students now. It's all about human, like, interaction and connection. So connections are important. Virtually, this is for kids too, and students. We know they love their social media. They love connections. So I think it's so important that when you find how you can connect in a meaningful way, to just hold on to it. You know, that's just the only advice is to, connect.
Yeah.
Like it.
No, I absolutely love that. Yeah. With kind of the topic of connections, then, can you, like, now you've gone through your journey to where you are now, can you actually pinpoint a certain thing or a place or even a person that's kind of changed your journey to where you are now?
Oh gosh. Okay, so this is going to take us way back, but this is the individual who completely transformed my thinking when it came to connections. For me, you know, when I was a teacher, a third, fourth grade teacher, I collaborated with the teachers on my campus, and that was it. I didn't even think that there was a possibility of connecting with others beyond my four walls. And this individual who is not an educator, is not in education, I give him a shout out often. He's the reason. He's what showed me what could happen if I took a chance and got connected. So I was teaching weather maps in third grade. It might have been fourth grade. And I was looking for someone to Skype with my students to talk to them about it. Like, I could teach them all day long. I would rock it, but I wanted to find like someone who lived and breathed weather. It was just more authentic, right? And so I reached out to every single meteorologist in the Houston area on Twitter, every single one of them, and nobody responded. I was so bummed, and I was like, well, I took a chance. Cool. I'm going to go to YouTube and find a video, you know, boring, whatever. I'm going to go find a video about weather maps. So I came across a video on YouTube by a man. His name is Ryan Davidson. And he had made a weather map video for his niece or nephew. And I was like, hey, I wonder if this guy's on Twitter. So I stalked him, found him on Twitter. I wasn't even friends with him on Twitter. And I sent him a direct message. And within 24 hours, I asked him, I said, would you be interested in visiting with my students about weather? And within 24 hours, if not less, he said yes. And that's all it took. He said yes. And we planned a time to meet. And little did we know that he actually worked for the Weather Channel. Like channel 214 on Dish, the channel you tune into when there's tornadoes and hurricanes, like that Weather Channel. He was working as like a producer at that time, I believe, or in the background. So that was year one. And then year two, he came back and visited with my new group of students. This time he was on a show called The Weather Underground, took us on a tour of his building and facility. even 2 years later, when I was an instructional coach and I had 2 first graders who were interested in severe weather, I contacted him. He was no longer in meteorology. He was actually working in aviation. He still Google, I was either Zoomed or we were on Google Meet, met with these 2 kids to talk to them about weather. Like that, he's the reason why I started making more and more connections as a teacher for my students and myself. And ever since then, the connections have just been, you can't measure how impactful they've been for me. And it really all started with him and a couple of other individuals who just said yes. And that's all it took was one word. And it's now brought me to here to where I share that story often, just to show teachers there's power in asking, there's power in taking a chance. He could have said no, cool, I would have shown the YouTube video, whatever. But I took a chance and he did it, and we stayed connected for years after. So that's my one story.
That's a very cool story, and how fortunate for your students as well, because they just got such an enriching class because of it, and a learning experience because you did take that step and reach out and even push it further to try and find someone who could teach them even more. So they got to reap the benefits of the steps that you took as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I suppose, again, when we talk about kind of PD and networking, you think about yourself and how you can obviously elevate yourself to be a better teacher. Obviously, that helps your students. In this story, especially, really did help your students. But it could even go beyond as well and help your school even more, help your district even more. So there's so much to gain by taking that risk and reaching out to people and trying to network. And yeah, that story was incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Amy.
I really thought you'd say me because I'm about to say you.
I was going to say, I'm anticipating my sister's going to talk about me. Right. So go ahead.
So it's obviously started with my sister because she pushed me to use more tech tools within counseling, which that's what I started doing. And eventually she released the reins and she's like, I'm not helping you more, Dyann. Like, you're going to have to dive in. I mean, she does help me. So I had to dive in and learn the tool myself by using like her templates and what she was teaching me within Wakelet. And then I started learning the tool and getting more confident. But like I've said before, when I started my journey with Wakelet, with my sister, with the Tech Care twins, it was super uncomfortable. And that's the only place I found my growth. So that was like 2 years ago. So from then on, I like seek out uncomfortable moments. Like, oh, that makes me scared. I'm going for it. Like, I'm doing it. If it's not normal for a counselor to do it, I'm doing it. I'm changing the way it looks in this counseling program. So her and Wakelet, y'all, I mean, because of the opportunities that y'all have given me, whether it be not even, you haven't given them to me, I've willingly presented on Wakelet. I love presenting on Wakelet at conferences. I've been asked to go to region centers from a lady I've never met. She sends me to all these region centers to talk about Wakelet. I went to Midland, Texas, in the middle of nowhere, and talked about Wakelet. And I've never met her, and she lives like local to me, but I met her through Twitter only because she saw me post something and tag Wakelet or something. So she saw my work. And then fast forward, the director of this school district saw me on Twitter, something I was posting about Wakelet. I think it was my calming room or something, or several things I posted about Wakelet, about things I do. And the next day she's emailing me, hey, are you looking for a job? And I'm like, absolutely, like, yes. So like, I just feel like all these opportunities of connections that have been presented to me that I've actually like been uncomfortable doing. Mm-hmm. I've never presented. I remember when I first presented with Amy, I just sat there like, I don't know what to say. Even when Tish was interviewing me at TCA, I'll never forget this. I think it might have been her and Marcus. I felt like a 5-year-old. I was like, I don't know what to say. Oh, there's a bird. Oh my gosh. What socks am I wearing? Like I wasn't making no sense. So there's times that I present and I'm like, God, I'm horrible at this. And like this morning I got thrown into presenting about 504, which I'm not even get into that. And I don't know anything about it, but I did it. And I know it's because of my opportunities I've had with y'all and with my sister presenting. It's given me confidence to connect with other people. I mean, I'm talking to counselors who have never wanted to use technology before that are now using Wakelet or technology because of we're showing them the connections they can make with their students and their staff. So
And Dyann, I'm sure y'all can see this. Dyann has no issue with talking. You know, that's her thing. But I'll tell you, the first time we presented it was in Las Vegas. I think one of the first, just
No.
well, one of the beginning times.
Yeah.
And we used to have a running joke when she first started. She still kind of does it now, but it's cute now. But she says and I do too a lot, but she says it often. So we turned it into a game. I would tell people, okay, you're gonna get a sticker if you can keep up with how many times she says during a session. And she's getting better. But yeah, Dyann's confidence has grown immensely. And I do think it's because of the opportunities she's been blessed with through Wakelet and other communities that have given her spaces to grow. Like y'all believed in her. Y'all believed in her calming room. You believed in her getting on webinars. And so for anybody who gets those opportunities, you start to feel like you can do it. Like you are capable of these things that you never thought you were capable of. I'm just so I could cry thinking about it, but I'm just so proud of her and how far she's come since COVID, because that's where it started for her. And she's just grown into this wonderful, educator that has a heart for students, families, teachers. And I do think it's opportunities that she's been given and that has just helped her grow more as a person and an educator for sure.
Oh, are you crying?
I almost did. Jeez, I don't do it in front of people.
It's the allergies, Amy. It's fine. No, I love that, and I we love seeing you on webinars, and it is strange for others when you say, I'm not. Sometimes I still got nervous going on because I have the same thing. I didn't know that I was going to be jumping on, webinars, speaking to lots of people. When I jumped in the job, I know it was a little bit about it, but I started off in the chat box, didn't I? Just in the chat, in the background, not really, jumping on them too much and saying too much. And we should probably do that game because I think I do that. Well, there we go. A really long one there. But isn't it funny how suddenly you then sort of switch and it's kind of like you just do you get asked to do a presentation and it starts to become, you're pushing yourself each time, but then it starts to become a lot more, it's just easier. You just do it and then you enjoy doing it so much. And I used to watch the guys jump on webinars and I was like, oh, I like that. Like, that looks like fun. And that kind of pushes you to do it. So by making these connections and seeing, others speak so well and so passionately as well, that kind of, pushed me to do it and want to be, involved in them more and jump onto them. And still there's instances in at conferences and things like that. I've never really presented in person, so that for me will be my sort of next challenge that I really want to do. I've been on the booth speaking and telling people about Wakelet, but to do a presentation for me, that I'm quite excited to do that because again, I've seen the likes of you both doing fantastic presentations and I'm like, I want to give that a go. And I think by, going to these conferences, having these connections, seeing other people and you're like, I want to try that. And it makes you push yourself more because you're also seeing that passion, seeing that enjoyment that others are getting from it as well. And you're like, I can do that. I'm going to give that a go. And I'm saying this now and I'm like, okay, wait until I'm there. It'll be fine. Yeah.
No, it's been so nice seeing your journey, Dyann, from joining the community all the way to now, and presenting at big conferences as well, which is absolutely incredible. Which one did you do recently? You said it was quite a big one.
Was it Mississippi?
We went to Mississippi recently for a counseling conference. So Fried Technology works with Mississippi, the entire state, and they had a counseling conference opportunity. And because they know my sister and know that she's in counseling, they actually got to send both of us to go. And it was a pretty awesome conference. And she got to meet some new educators there before that.
Oh, he made me. I think are you talking about ASCA, the ASCA U Ignite?
Yeah,
okay,
that's the one.
American School Counseling Association has an organization that's for onboarding for new counselors. It's called ASCA U Ignite. And they asked myself and Amy to do a session on tech tools, which involve I think it was just Wakelet and Canva, I think. And I think, so we recorded it prior to, I think, Canva merging with y'all to where we could, use Canva. Yeah. And so we pre-recorded that video. They played it during the university, the U Ignite. And I had to go on live for a live Q&A the last 15 minutes, which was last week. And I got to talk about it, the Canva and the Canva. I'm going to talk about Canva, the new integration with Canva and Wakelet. So anyway, there were some hungry school counselors in that session, and they were all about what Wakelet had, especially the calming rooms. That's the biggest hit I have is the calming rooms. So, but yeah, we just did the big thing with Ask a You Ignite, and that's something that they're going to do every year. School districts pay for their new counselors to be onboarded through this program. And so I think they're going to keep that session in there each year, hopefully. But
good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Like I say, the story, the journey has been absolutely incredible to see. We probably saw you first from posting those calming rooms. I mean, I know we've sent them around the office tons of times. We share them with the community. But again, it just goes back to what we were saying before. As soon as you put yourself out there and start sharing and be willing to take that risk, maybe you're going to post a tweet of a calming room or something that you really care about, and you've got to be kind of up for maybe getting no likes on the first one, but then someone will see it, and then the next time you do it, and then next minute you join an online community, and then within a year, just like yourself, you're presenting at a national conference, which is absolutely incredible. And I think it's just the reason why we invite you here to talk about it as well is because it'd be really nice to hopefully inspire someone as well who's probably in the same job role, maybe a counsellor, maybe a coach from around the world, or a teacher. But I just want to say that the opportunities are out there, whether it's a company like Wakelet or the many edtech companies out there, whether it is a conference, whether it is in your own school. As soon as you put yourself out there, there are opportunities to kind of grasp. And you'll most likely gravitate towards the ones that you're best at. Yeah. So,
as long as I think it's important too, as long as you, I know for me and Amy, if your mindset is set, like you're doing it, the job you're doing is for your community, your students, your staff, your employees, your at Fried, the people you work for. If that's your mindset, I'm doing that, that's the job, then more opportunities will come up for you that they'll present themselves to explore more opportunities within, what you're sharing. So, so if you do it, I don't know if I'm making any sense. If your main purpose is
it's about your why, like what
your why, not just to get recognition or more likes and clicks and shares. If it's all about your why are you sharing a comment? Why are you building calming rooms? Well, for my students, for my families. If it expands to other things, that's great, but my mind is that it's built for my kids, it's built for my community, so anyway.
But yeah, it did, and by just sharing that as well, like you said, it's not about the likes and things like that. It's about saying, right, this worked for me, this worked for my students, this made my life a little bit easier. I'm sharing it because hopefully it will make someone else's life a bit easier, or their students will like it as well. And that's what the community is all about. All of the ideas, the inspo that we see, we love sharing it, and we love the community sharing it, because there is someone else out there who maybe is looking for, a calming room or a template for a lesson plan or something like that, that's going to make their life just a little bit easier, and of course benefit the students as well.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I know Dyann basically answered this question a second ago, so more towards Amy. In terms of the Wakelet community, obviously you're one of the original ambassadors from maybe 4 years ago.
It's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while, yeah. And your journey has been absolutely incredible, and now obviously you're with Fried Ed. Is there anything in particular that helped with being a part of a community like the Wakelet community to get where you are, that you could share with the audience?
Yeah, I think, if you join any community, I think before I even got on Twitter, it was Facebook, and it was the instructional coaching community, or teachers connecting with teachers. And so when you join communities like Wakelet, you just meet more and more people who may possibly open doors for you, or connect you with others, or give you opportunities like this to where others can hear your story and all that good stuff. And I think being a part of those communities, you just never know what's going to happen with meeting people and where that's going to take you. And Fried Tech, I've known Fried Tech for years, been a huge fan of Amy Mayer's forever. And she saw me on a video podcast with my sister. And I was sharing my love of Microsoft and Google. And that's where the conversation started for me. As far as this job that I'm totally in love with now. So it was getting out there. It was knowing the right people and getting on that little video I think it was like a vlogcast or vlog, some name for it. And yeah, so yeah, and a lot of the people that I met and do things with like this, it's because I joined a community. And I will say a good tip or trick, and Amy had mentioned this earlier, I think it's okay to lurk. Like when you first join a community, it's okay to kind of sit in the background and just read posts and not interact. But at some point, the power is in those connections. It's actually participating in conversations, it's sharing, it's helping. It's not just asking for help. It's a give and take. So it's not just one-sided in those communities. And so it's okay to lurk at first. I did that for probably a year. I just looked at, comments and stuff, and I didn't start getting brave about it for a bit. But once I did, man, those doors that opened, the people that I met, it's just, like I said, you just can't measure it.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely consider joining a community like Wakelet or any community with educators who are going to empower you to just be better.
Yeah, that's a great top tip to end on. From yourself, Dyann, is there any tip right now for anyone listening? Maybe they're a counsellor, maybe they're a teacher, and they're thinking, oh, I'd like to follow in the footsteps of Dyann or Amy, or even just create their own journey. Is there any one top tip that you'd share with them to get started?
I think I share this every time, but you have to get uncomfortable. If we can't stay in the same box anymore, like times are changing, we have to get uncomfortable with our growth and use what we have. If you are scared of the tool or anything technology, take the templates, use them. That's the only way. That's the way you're going to learn. But just take the first step, reach out to one of us, connect with us. That's how I started, was just connecting with probably one person, and then just kind of blossomed from there. So just get uncomfortable, get wet, get dirty, get uncomfortable.
Yeah. I want to say, like, the people that I first followed on Twitter, some of the educators, I went to their friend list. And I think that's how I started. I went through and I was like, well, these are good people. I'm sure these people they're following or that are following them are good people too. And so I would just start following people like that and connecting with classrooms. And now it's just a great friend list on Twitter. So maybe just check out someone you've started to follow and look at their friend list and go from there.
Yeah. I like that recommended list.
Yeah, so
it's a good one.
Yeah,
especially if you're you are just starting out and you are just connecting and just trying to grow from the get go and you want to you know where to start. Just look at that recommended list because I love it.
Yeah, you're not starting from zero. I think that's a great point. You're not starting from zero. There are networks out there.
Yeah.
People already got connections. So yeah, that's a brilliant tip. But yeah, so that I think I also like as well. There's two people right here, or there's four people right here. You can go ahead and follow if you're listening.
Right.
So we're obviously at Wakelet on Twitter. Amy, Dyann, you want to share your Twitter handles with anyone that's listening?
Yeah, mine is. Sorry, Dyann. Mine is Tech Amy S, TECHAMYS.
And mine is at Tech TECH Care CARE Wilson WILSON. Tech Care Wilson.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fab. We'll make sure we put them in the little bio-y bit as well.
We will put it in the bio bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
that was all
of the YouTube
professional.
video.
Little bio bit.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. No. Thank you so much. Yeah. For those that are listening, if you're looking to grow a network, grow a community, well, there's four right here. There's the Wake community, and of course, the many that we spoke about, whether it's in your own school or a global community, and anything in between. But no, thank you so much, Dyann and Amy, for those top tips, and for just sitting and chatting and sharing your stories. Like I said at the start, I'm pretty sure you'll be inspiring a lot of people, but just by sharing your journey and sharing those tips. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everything that you've done for Wakelet and the platform and the community as well. And I'm pretty sure we'll see you on a webinar sometime soon as well.
Yes, lovely chatting with you both as always, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So to get started in growing your network, the first thing you can do is follow Amy, Dyann, of course, as well as myself and Amy.
Yes, please do.
And the rest of the Wakelet team. We'll pop all of those details into a Wakelet collection along with everything we discussed today. We'll throw in links for communities to join and all that good stuff too. So we'll be throwing that into a collection which will live inside of wakelet.com/@thewakeletpodcast. And of course, there'll be the rest of the Wakelet podcast. You can go there and watch, and all the resources for them will also be in Wakelet, which is a pretty handy tool for collecting this sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's good that, isn't it?
And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, you can catch up with the others also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as well, where we have all of our podcasts there. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a thumbs up. Please leave us a comment. Let us know what else you'd like us to explore in this series of kind of growing your network and helping with your PD over this summer and into the new school year. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all very, very soon.